Hey, quants, we're going to get back into the charts and take a look and see how things are developing. Just a brief look that I saw this morning, it looked like we did get some continuation on the BTC breakout of that range that we've been watching. And I also noticed, looking at the volume, that it looked like it was on significant volume. So that is all good for continuation. Before we go there, I just wanted to touch on something, which is the inflation, the economic calendar here in TradingView. And the reason I wanted to look at this is because people tend to bring this up all the time. However, I did not hear anyone talk about that at all this week. And so numbers were all in line. So nothing to be nothing crazy really, but I just wanted to point it out. Hey, if you didn't know, we had the inflation rates come in on Tuesday and nobody even spoke about it. So just thought that was kind of interesting. Sometimes you'll hear people talking about this stuff all the time, but not this go round. So let's jump back into the Bitcoin chart and take a look. As I mentioned before, if we got a breakout of this range, which we did have before, but we needed to wait and see if we got continuation from that. And so even though we got a breakout, if you were being aggressive, you certainly could have bought on that breakout, either with some kind of a limit order or on the close. If you got on the close, you'd still be in profit today, although you would have got it at not as nice of a price. However, if you're still expecting, as I am expecting, price to go up to at least the 200 EMA and potentially the 200 SMA, then let's take a measure here and see what those prices would look like. So from the close of yesterday up to the 200s, you're looking at about a 4.5% trade, and then just over 10%, 11% trade if we get all the way up to the 200 SMA. So I believe there was word that the Clarity bill was going to have markdown on it tomorrow, and basically what that means is they're just going to they're basically going to bring the bill forward, but that's only for adjustments. So I'm not expecting the bill to actually be passed tomorrow. That being the case, I could foresee people who are not really following the news that closely get a little bit upset that the bill doesn't actually just get passed on tomorrow and it's only discussed, and then everyone sells off. So we'll see how price continues to develop. With that said, I'm still expecting a nice touch all the way up here to at least the 200 SMA, 200 EMA. And if we're looking at the MACD just real quick, that's still looking good. Looks like we're getting a curve around here on the stochastics, so just an indication of further momentum, although we don't really need to look at that at this point because we can see that we got momentum based on the price movement, and we also see it on the volume here. And one thing to note here is the volume, the moving average on the volume is turning up. And we also have volume above the average volume, looking at this moving average here for the volume indicator. And so price has been up above the average volume, which is a good indication of momentum in a particular direction. The reason I say in a particular direction, because while the volume is bullish or upward momentum here, you can also see it with these darker bars here. I mean, and that's just indicative of a further decline in the volume, right? So you can have it either direction. You just kind of need to look at it. Looking at the table here that I still have yet to code this in because I've been working on some other things that have really sparked my interest, and so I'm just working on some other stuff right now, but that I mentioned a little bit last video. But anyways, still nothing has really changed here, and it'll be some time before we see any dramatic changes in the overall trend change indicators in this table, because we need, at this point we have the fast moving averages already trending up, and nothing else is really going to happen until we see something happen with these slower trend indicators. And so let's see, we'll leave it there for that. I didn't look at silver today, but I heard somebody said it got all the way up to 80,000 or 80,000. That would be pretty sweet, and I would be happy with that. But above $80. And yeah, this thing is still just, oh my goodness, pushing to a new high. So that is significant. Not really much to say. Like I said, just hold on. If you can, figure out what you're going to do in terms of like capturing the momentum of the price. I mean, trailing bars is probably not a bad idea if you're going to follow the Gann swing low on the 2-day, and I believe in the 1-day is going to line up with this as well. Uh, yeah, even the 1-day is going to line up at the same point here because it's just going so crazy that you're about $15 away from where the price, or $18 away from where price action currently is. So if you don't want to give up all that point or all that price, you might want to start trailing your stops a little bit closer, which is something I might start to do myself. And I probably won't do it with my full position, but I would do it with a portion of my position so that if price comes down below here, I'm getting all these nice juicy gains that when you look at your paper profits and you just start to drool, that's time to start trailing price a little bit closer, in my opinion, at least with part of that position. That way, when people ask you if you got to sell the top, you can at least say you sold close to the top. So, and it doesn't have to be everything, just something. For myself, I'm just partially saying this for myself because, as I mentioned before, that's something I haven't been the best at. And so at least then I can say that I sold something and it kind of works those selling muscles. So looking at gold, same thing. So gold is at a new all-time high as well. So not quite as crazy as silver, but still getting up there nonetheless. Still kind of watching for this bearish divergence to potentially play out. Up on this oscillator, now I will say the mentor that I had when he was had introduced this oscillator to me, he mentioned the divergences that you can see in this oscillator. And so one of them was, you see these these are bull signals and then bear signals, right? And so you'll just have the B here, the S here. Normally I turn that off. Actually, I guess I never turned it off on this one. But if you go basically bull, bear, bull, that tends to be a bullish divergence signal on this indicator, not in the traditional sense, but just the way that this indicator works. And so when that happens, oftentimes you will see price action shoot up. Now, I will say I've not tested that. It's not something that I have used. I'm just anyone who's interested in it. You can get these indicators. This was the TJD Jewel Thief. This one in particular, you had to be part of the group to get access to, but anytime he had made updates, he released the old version for free. And so you can get something that is very close to this version if you search for it in TradingView, if that is something you want to also use. But on the other side of this, if you see bear, bull, bear, or buy or sell, buy, sell, then that is a divergence signal in the opposite direction. And you can see here, let's see if I click on price. I'm kind of curious if this one overrode that. Yeah, so, and then price did fall down a bit there. And so the only reason I mentioned that, this does not look like that right now. But I do see this bull, and I just saw this red. Even though it's not the sell signal, I just wanted to mention that for anybody who's interested in kind of playing with this, other ways you might look at this or want to use this, if it's something you're interested in playing with. Right now, I'm just waiting to see if we get some continuation, if we can get this MACD, get the momentum in gold to push up over this previous top here, then maybe we'll be able to avoid that third drive of bearish divergence that is potentially forming on the MACD. So the other thing that that's it for the typical charts that I go over. I guess one thing maybe I'll take a look at here, because I was just interested in it, was MicroStrategy. A lot of people were talking about MicroStrategy. We have some increasing volume. We're about to get that 821 cross here. So this actually might not be a bad, if you're just playing the 821, this candle here does not look good if you're just looking at the candle patterns. There's a lot of volume on this, however, and it looks like we might, stochastics are pointing it up, although there's not that much. I mean, it still has room to run. It's only at 60, right? So the knife's really high. The volume was high here. We got the MACD, MA sloping up now. This potentially is going to cross above the zero. So people who maybe, I don't know. If in hindsight, what I would say is if price jumped up, then what I would say is people are getting their positions right now. And so if you're just playing the straight up 821 cross strategy, when this crosses, that would potentially be the time to take that signal. If you're using the 2-day 2-bar swing indicator, Gann swing indicator, your entry point would have been right above this swing top here, because we had a low, we had a high, we had a low that was higher than this previous low, and then as soon as we broke the previous high, that then turned this green. So as I mentioned before, and I'll probably mention over and over again, this tends to be a little bit more responsive than just the 821 cross. You could have got in at a little bit better price, but to be fair, you're not that far off now. And if I'm just going to use the current price as it is now, if you were to buy now and we make an assumption that price is going to go all the way up to the 200 EMAs to get that touch, that's a 50% trade. That is massive. So I'm not going to say yes for sure that's going to happen, but considering MicroStrategy or strategy tends to play at a beta of Bitcoin, 75% if you get up to the 200 SMA, these are not unrealistic numbers in my opinion. So there is potential to get a position there. However, I would say manage your risk carefully, because it crapped the bed before, and you probably don't want to continue riding this down if it falls through this range. Now there's a range here, so my opinion, this is not. My opinion is that it's it probably needs some work to just bust through this range. But if I just eyeballing it here, 121. If we were to move price from where it currently is, let's say you take a position and then it was bad and it drops all the way to 121, that's 31% down, which is significant, right? So you might want to be cautious about how you manage this position. Maybe use this one of these swing lows as your exit if you're going to go ahead and try and do that. The other thing, since I talked about this, I'll just flip back here. I did mention these Mexican Pete patterns, which is essentially just ascending triangle patterns, and the breakout there. 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, got that bust through, right? So I was just flipping through my charts, and I haven't traded this in quite a while. However, I did notice that I had this drawn on here before, and so I just, as a historical reference point, I wanted to say, hey, I have used this before, and I even used it on some of the more speculative things like this SPX 6900. I noticed there was somewhat of an ascending triangle forming here, and we got a breakthrough, and I ended up taking a position right when this broke out. And you can even see my note on here, Mexican Pete breakout. And then this position continued to move up. It went, I'm trying to remember when I got out, because I think I got out after it crossed back up here, which obviously I could have gotten so much more profit if I would have managed my position differently. But because this was such a speculative play at the time, and I didn't have a lot of conviction in it, I just went ahead and exited my position. So I still got a good trade on this, but there was a lot more juice to squeeze out of this one. If you'd have just been doing something as simple as following like your Gann swing stuff. And having said that, though, using the 2-day by itself probably would have not been that successful, right? Because you could have got all the way up here, you still would have got all the way down here, and then you still didn't break this previous swing low. So at this point, this is one where you see these candles, maybe you wanted to start trailing the candles or something like that. Just pointing that out, that there's something besides, it's not just as simple as say, oh, if I just would have done the swing indicator, it would have been fine. Because I would have just like sat in this position and ended up getting out about where I got out anyways. Or worse, if I would have waited all the way till down here. So, trading's not as easy as it always looks in hindsight, but I did want to point out the fact that I do have some of these triangles drawn on some of my charts when I've traded them, and I've kind of left them on there, and I'm glad I did, because then I can bring them forward and say, hey, look, see, here's an example of when I did that in the past. So that will be it for today. I want to get back to building some stuff I'm super excited about. Been having a ton of fun building some of the stuff. And if I get something finished in the near future here that I think is worth sharing here, then I'll kind of probably do like one of my building videos where I just kind of show everybody what I've built. Depending on what it is, it might be open source or not. I have a few things, some which might be open source and some that might not be open source. So I hope everyone is doing well, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace, quants.